Welcome back to the Stephen A. Smith Show. Before I get on out of here, I had to talk about a story that's very, very important. And albeit indirectly, it involves Caitlin Clark.
The golden girl of the basketball world has ceased speaking, yet she is surrounded by an overpowering den. We're talking about more than just a roster snub now. The biggest marketing opportunity in sports history is being actively demolished, and it might not stop. The most powerful voice in sports media claims that the WNBA elite is reluctant to accept a narrative that Stephen A. Smith has just reinforced. It's not only about benching Caitlin Clark. In essence, she has given up on a system that clearly did not want her in the first place. For months, the media tried to persuade us that this was related to basketball standards. They clarified that it has to do with chemistry, seniority, and dues. But when you peel back the layers of well-written PR statements and news releases, you find something even more disgusting. You learn about a story of hostility, gatekeeping, and a certain amount of narrow-minded jealousy that has turned basketball into a battleground. Please consider liking this video and subscribing to the channel if you enjoy this content. It may surprise you to learn that almost 83% of viewers have not yet subscribed. It's free and only takes a second, but it means the world to us. Have you already subscribed? Fantastic. I sincerely appreciate your help. Let's return to the video now. Stephen A. Smith wasn't just critical of the decision. He exposed the rot in the middle. He asserted that Clark is well aware of the circumstances and that her significance, rather than her inferiority, is the reason for her targeting. According to reports, Clark has sealed that door, even if Indiana Fever were to make a comeback. She has reportedly given up seeking acceptance from a group of pals who have been trying to physically and psychologically abuse her for the past 6 months, according to claims that are currently going viral. Why would the most popular athlete in America quit competing internationally? What did Stephen A. Smith notice that everyone else missed? Is this the moment when the top players in women's basketball have finally killed their own golden goose? The basketball story of Caitlin Clark leaving will expose a negative aspect of professional sports that no one wants you to notice. So put on your seatbelt. To understand why Stephen A. Smith will burn in hell, we must go back to the moment the news was announced. The objective was to make a standard roster announcement. These lists are frequently seen. A day after some fans complain about being ignored, the news cycle changes. The others weren't like this. This was a cultural earthquake. When the leaks started to come to light, Caitlin Clark, who was selling full venues that had been empty for 10 years on her own, was left off the Indiana Fever. Hardly the only reaction was confusion. It was rage. The formal selection committee justification was shaky at best. They talked about what they had gone through. They talked about the 3-year commitment required to join the core group. Everything made logical on paper, but it ignored reality. Since Michael Jordan is a rookie, you should not leave him at home. You don't leave Tiger Woods in the clubhouse because he hasn't paid his dues. The most gifted individuals are placed on the airplane. This is the story's darkest section. Insiders began to reveal that this was not an error, though. It conveyed a message. Those close to the selection process expressed concern about how the veterans would react to Clark's presence. The circus she would bring worried them. They were essentially worried that the emergence of a rookie superstar would hurt the egos of the legends who thought this was their squad. This was not a basketball decision. Emotional regulation was part of it. They prioritized the comfort of the veteran over the advancement of the game. And that's exactly where Stephen A. Smith drew the line in the sand. His later comments, meanwhile, went beyond merely disparaging the committee. Sabotage was the charge. Although Stephen A. Smith is known for his harsh views, his reaction to Clark's rejection appeared to be different. It was personal. On national television, he essentially called the ruling stupid. But it went more than just calling names. He highlighted the committee's incompetence by dismantling the sports industry. He presented a clear argument. Basketball is a global spectacle. Every 4 years, casual viewers follow sports that they might not normally pay attention to. Women's basketball has had trouble drawing spectators for a long time. Suddenly, millions of people are watching a player. When a casual fan is left at home. For occasional Tuesday night games in Indiana, she installs DVRs. This was a marketing disaster, according to Smith. He underlined that the Indiana Fever have other objectives besides winning trophies. They are successful regardless of who is on the roster. Due to their huge advantage over the rest of the league, the Indiana Fever could have sent a college team and most likely still won. Smith claims that the goal should have been to advance the game and expand the brand. Smith claimed that by keeping Clark out, the sports gatekeepers showed that their own hierarchy is more significant to them than the success of the league as a whole. He suggested that there is a level of stupidity in charge music that is nearly impossible to comprehend without considering malice. They didn't just miss an opportunity, they rejected it. Smith also asserts that Clark will remember this insult. He suggested that Clark's camp was filming each and every person who stayed silent and that there might be a fire on the bridge already. If we are to be honest about Caitlin Clark's exclusion from the Indiana Fever, we have to talk about the WNBA. This storyline is the only one that makes sense, despite the WNBA's strong desire to avoid it. Go back in time to before Clark had a single minute of professional experience. Music, the warning rounds had already been fired. Legends of the game, women atop the sport's Mount Rushmore, made comments that felt strangely hostile. Diana Taurasi, one of the greatest of all time, memorably said, "Reality is coming for Clark." It sounded like a caution. It sounded ominous. Then there was Cheryl Swoops, another legend, who wrongly questioned Clark's collegiate statistics and claimed that her 40 shots each game were the only factor contributing to her dominance. What put such pressure on these legends? Why were they trying to minimize the accomplishments of a 22-year-old before she had even hit the court? The old guard is displeased with the attention Clark is getting, according to the view that Stephen A. Smith has alluded to. They performed in empty gyms. They traveled on commercial flights for very little money and with very little regard. They seek employment. A little girl from Iowa who hasn't even played a game, yet has millions of dollars in Nike sponsorships, private jets waiting for her, and fans waiting in line. While envy is a normal human feeling, veterans in professional sports frequently back the rookie with the highest salary. When Tiger Woods transformed the game, the other golfers did not hate him. They were thankful that he quadrupled their prize money. In the WNBA, however, the reaction has been the opposite. They appear to be attempting to punish her for being popular. Music, Clark might be secretly relieved that the poison in the locker room prevented her from contracting Indiana fever. The hostility did not end with the press conferences. It poured on the hardwood. The story now shifts from drama to real danger. If you have been watching the games, you have seen it. Caitlin Clark is given a distinct type of blow, music. We are not talking about tough defense. We're talking about non-basket plays. We are talking about the now famous Alyssa Thomas incident, in which a hip check caught Clark off guard before the ball was even in play. Alyssa Thomas threw Clark to the ground after using a harsh remark. It was a cheap shot, to put it simply.
See the response, though.
Was Carter immediately suspended by the league? No. Were the veterans quick to stand up for Clark? In fact, a lot of athletes and media personalities appeared to support it. They called it "Welcome to the League" and advised Clark to get harder. There is a serious double standard here. As Stephen A. Smith pointed out that if a nobody was chia-potting LeBron James or Stephen Curry, the NBA would take swift action to protect its assets. But with Clark, it felt like open season. Basketball is directly impacted by this. Why would Caitlin Clark choose to spend a month overseas with teammates who either witnessed or participated in the bullying? The Indiana fever is caused by the women who have been wrecking her life for the past 3 months. Trust has vanished. A positive team environment cannot be fostered by people who seem to want you to fail. This brings up the soft quit rumor, which is the most explosive part of the current situation. Following the roster announcement, there were suspicions that Clark might receive a different spot from the Indiana Fever. In the event of an injury, she would practically be prepared to go. Without actually placing her, they use it as a consoling reward to let her feel we still value her. Others with knowledge of the situation, however, claimed that Clark had no intention of acting as a backup. Rumor has it that she politely but firmly stated that if she wasn't good enough for the starting lineup, she didn't want to wait in the wings. This is the soft quit. Clark did not have a press conference. She didn't misbehave. She simply silently removed her availability. Recent statements made by Stephen A. Smith supports this viewpoint. He was suggesting that Clark had realized how strong she was. She is the WNBA's economy at the moment. She doesn't need Indiana Fever to build her brand. The Indiana Fever needed her to build theirs. In essence, she's saying, "You made your bed. Now sleep in it," by departing and taking a month off to unwind. It's a boss move. The establishment is also incensed music since they anticipated her begging. They expected her to be grateful for leftovers. Instead, they perform in front of television viewers that are likely just half as big as they could have been while she is on holiday. Since let's talk about statistics, they are truthful. The Clark effect is real and quantifiable. More people are watching Caitlin Clark's games than the WNBA has in 20 years. We're talking about a 300% to 400% increase in ratings over games without her. When Clark plays, the stadiums are packed. When she visits other teams, the games must be moved to bigger NBA stadiums to accommodate the crowd. She is the walking stimulus package for the league. This concept was made very evident by Stephen A. Smith. Television is the source of basketball. NBC paid millions of dollars for the rights to broadcast these games. They're trying to get ratings. By leaving Clark at home, the committee essentially set money on fire. The reaction in this case is passive. Clark doesn't need to do anything. She just has to sit at home. When the ratings for the basketball games are significantly lower than those of an average Indiana Fever regular season game, the point will be demonstrated. The retaliation will be shown on television. Millions of people who would have watched will instead be involved in other activities. Thus, it won't be. Due to these financial realities, the decision is very challenging. It's more than just a sporting decision. It's a bad business decision. Additionally, losing money is in the professional sports sector. It is frequently the only infraction that leads to termination. We music need to address the culture that enabled this. The WNBA is being accused by more and more fans of having a problem with cruel girls. It's a clique. Initiation is a difficult procedure for this sorority. For many years, the league has been a tight-knit community. Everyone is acquainted with one another. They play together overseas during the off-season. Together, they're having difficulties. Clark represents something new. She represents the majority. She is an illustration of a casual admirer. Furthermore, it appears that casual fans are hated by insiders. You may see it on social media. WNBA purists are angry that Clark is the soul it attracts new admirers. "We have been here for years," they tweet. "Motivate the other players as well." The thesis is sound, despite the harsh delivery music. Instead of welcoming the newcomers, they are criticizing them. For a sports league, this kind of thinking is deadly. Stephen A. Smith says you should welcome new fans with open arms rather than checking their credentials at the door. By leaving out Clark, the committee maintained this us versus them mentality. Music, they stated unequivocally that they would prefer to keep their small, exclusive group rather than witness a massive, inclusive rise in popularity. Clark has been polite by all reports. She praises her competitors. She signs signatures for hours on end. She chooses the best course of action. However, the mean girl feeling in the league tends to get stronger the more professional she seems. Because of this uncomfortable circumstance, neutral spectators are turning against the league's veterans. The corporate perspective is another facet of this that Stephen A. Smith has brought out. Caitlin Clark is a Nike athlete. One of the Indiana Fever's main sponsors is Nike. These rosters are frequently greatly influenced by the shoe companies. They want their biggest stars to advertise sneakers on television. So, why didn't Nike step in? Why didn't they force the committee to take action? Music. There are claims that even Nike failed to overcome the internal intrigues of the selection committee. There are speculations that Nike takes sides, which may be more interesting. They also provide funding for veterans. Maybe they didn't want to upset their established roster. Nonetheless, most people agree that the committee maintained its stance to show that businesses don't manage the team even when doing so hurts their biggest partner. Clark intended to introduce a collection of signature shoes. Basketball would have been the perfect global launchpad. This is no longer a chance. This corporate synergy failure is just another example of how flawed the entire procedure was. Unexpectedly, Clark, the best athlete in the country, and Nike, the biggest marketing powerhouse in the world, came into contact. It's a huge mistake in music. In this case, we must exercise caution, yet we cannot ignore the online debates. The racial aspect of the conversation has stoked the flames. Caucasian is Caitlin Clark's race. The majority of WNBA players are black. Some athletes think that white athletes receive more respect and consideration than black athletes of similar talent as a result of Clark's extensive media coverage. This is a valid historical debate, but in this instance, it has been turned into a weapon. The anti-Clark mindset is now embodied by individuals like Angel Ree, who has been at conflict with Clark since college. When Alyssa Thomas fouled Clark on Twitter, the discussion swiftly split along racial lines. This has been handled cautiously by Stephen A. Smith, who never backs down from talking about racism in athletics. He insists that the numbers in this case are correct even though he acknowledges the historical disparities. Clark's popularity is not just due to his race. It is related to how she performs. She shoots from the logo, just like Stephen Curry. Although it is exciting, the racial tension in the locker room dynamics cannot be ignored. If Clark feels that she is being singled out or excluded in part due to these racial politics, the atmosphere becomes even more toxic. It turns into a no-win situation for her. If she speaks up, she is a villain. If she doesn't speak, she gets beaten. She might be able to get away from this stressful scenario for a month by not playing basketball, which might be exactly what she needs for her mental health. We haven't talked enough about the coach, Cheryl Reeve. In addition to she is the head coach of the Indiana Fever in addition to coaching the Minnesota Lynx. Before the season had started, she posted things that seemed to lessen the attention Clark was getting. One of her complaints was the broadcast schedule that favored the Indiana Fever. How can a player feel comfortable playing for a coach who publicly criticized her team's excessive TV time before the season even began? This was a conflict of interest, as Stephen A. Smith noted. Prejudice against the Clark hype train has already been demonstrated by the roster decision-maker. When asked about the decision to omit Clark, Cheryl Reeve was succinct, confrontational, and disrespectful. She didn't give a friendly explanation. She shrugged coldly. There is a severe absence of leadership here. A great coach manages egos. A great coach is able to blend the expertise of seasoned coaches with the abilities of youthful players. Cheryl Reeves appears to have chosen the simplest path and appeased the veterans by keeping the child out. Consequently, she was unsuccessful in her initial attempt to lead women's basketball in the modern era. Let's return to the other place. In the world of professional sports, being an alternate is an underappreciated role. You train and travel, but you don't play unless someone gets hurt. For many, asking a player of Clark's caliber is a slap in the face. Who, in essence, represents the sport, to act as a substitute. Music, LeBron James could be asked to play as an alternate in his first campaign. It wouldn't happen. The rumor that she basically left the alternate pool is the best indicator of Clark's mindset.
She knows how valuable she is.
No thanks, she replied, regaining her composure. She refused to support a team that didn't want her on the court. And Stephen A. Smith loves that perspective. Please use the comment area to express your opinions. To ensure you don't miss anything, subscribe and turn on all notifications. Once you click the video on the screen, we'll see you in the next one.